In a world full of masks, how do you know who's truly genuine? Niccolo Machiavelli, the master of political cunning and human insight, wasn't just writing for princes. He was writing for anyone trying to survive in a world of hidden agendas. He understood one brutal truth: not everyone is who they pretend to be. So today, we'll explore 5 timeless strategies inspired by Machiavelli to help you identify who's real and who's just playing a part. People reveal themselves through what they do, not what they say. This is one of the most central insights Machiavelli offers, and it's perhaps the most useful tool for seeing through false appearances. Words are cheap. They cost nothing. They can be tailored, rehearsed, manipulated. A person can say exactly what you want to hear, offer apologies, swear loyalty, or even pretend humility, but it's all noise unless their behavior matches it. Machiavelli understood this deeply. In his world of politics and shifting alliances, survival depended on being able to distinguish between someone's performance and their reality. A person might speak endlessly about their values, honesty, loyalty, kindness, but do their actions align? Do they lie to others when it benefits them? Do they abandon you when it's inconvenient? Do they act kindly in public but show cruelty in private? If their actions contradict their words, always believe the actions. Machiavelli would have said, "It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles." In the same way, it is not words that make a person trustworthy, it's what they do, especially when they think no one is watching. This is especially important because deception is not always obvious. Sometimes people lie not through big betrayals, but through tiny inconsistencies. A friend who always talks about how much they support you, but never shows up when it counts. A co-worker who praises your work, but subtly undermines you behind closed doors. A partner who promises to change, but repeats the same hurtful patterns. In these cases, Machiavellian insight helps us avoid being blinded by good intentions or persuasive language. The truth is in the pattern, not the exception. One kind act doesn't erase 100 selfish ones. Machiavelli would have advised us to study people like a strategist observes the battlefield, without emotion, without illusion, and with total clarity. Watch what someone chooses to do when they have options. Do they honor commitments, or do they break them when it's convenient? Do they help others when there's nothing to gain, or only when there's an audience? Real people act with integrity across situations. Fake ones adjust their behavior depending on who's watching. There's also a deeper layer to this idea. Over time, people often use words to build a version of themselves, a sort of ideal mask they wear in public. This image might take the form of being a good person, a loyal friend, or a wise mentor. But life, especially under pressure, always tests these images. When stress, conflict, or loss enter the scene, masks crack. And when they do, we must look past the apologies and justifications that follow. We must watch, quietly, what they do next. Do they take responsibility? Do they make amends with actions, not just words? Or do they return to the same behavior after the dust settles? Real people don't need to tell you who they are over and over. Their patterns of action speak for them. You begin to feel their consistency. There is alignment between what they say and what they do. And this kind of integrity, once seen, becomes unmistakable. On the other hand, once you train yourself to see the difference, empty words start to sound hollow. You'll begin to notice how often people use language to hide, to manipulate, or to distract. Machiavelli's lesson is brutal in its simplicity. Don't be seduced by words. If someone loves you, they'll show it. If they respect you, they'll prove it. If they're loyal, it'll be in their daily choices, not in their Instagram captions or their clever excuses. When it comes to truth, actions are the currency. Everything else is just theater. When everything is going well, it's easy for people to appear kind, loyal, and supportive. In times of peace and prosperity, most people wear their best masks. They smile, they show up, they say the right things. But it is in times of difficulty, when pressure mounts, when plans fall apart, when nothing is certain, that the truth of a person is revealed. Machiavelli understood this better than most. He wrote that fortune is like a storm. It doesn't just test structures, it exposes which ones were weak all along. If you want to know who's real in your life, watch carefully when things go wrong, when you lose your job, when your reputation takes a hit, when you're struggling emotionally or financially. When you're no longer useful to someone, how do they treat you then? Because in adversity, the pretenders vanish. The opportunists step away. The ones who only stood by you for convenience, status, or gain, they quietly disappear or become distant. They may even turn against you if siding with you becomes too costly. Machiavelli believed that the loyalty of allies, friends, or subjects should never be assumed. It must be tested. Not through interrogation or confrontation, but by the natural unfolding of time and misfortune. Trouble reveals truth. People who claim to support you will often fail the test when there's nothing left for them to gain, or worse, something for them to lose. And this isn't a betrayal of their mask, it's the revelation of their true self. They were never with you, they were with the benefits of being near you. Consider your own life. Think about the times you struggled. Who stayed in contact without being asked? Who offered help not because they had to, but because they wanted to? Who asked how you were doing even when they were busy or far away? These are the real ones. Their presence during your suffering is a sign of sincerity, not performance. They're not waiting for the weather to clear so they can reappear. They're standing beside you while the rain is still falling. Machiavelli also understood that some people don't just abandon you in hard times. They take advantage of your vulnerability. These are the ones who smile when you're down, but use your weakness to elevate themselves. In political life, this meant seizing power when rivals were weakened. In personal life, it can look like someone gossiping about your failures, distancing themselves to protect their image, or exploiting your pain to control you. The presence of such people in your life is dangerous, not because they openly attack, but because they do so subtly when you're least able to defend yourself. But there's an important counterpoint. Hardship doesn't just reveal who's fake, it also draws out those rare individuals who are authentic, even if they were quiet before. Sometimes people you didn't expect step forward. They support you when it's uncomfortable. They help not because they owe you, but because it's the right thing to do. Machiavelli would have called these people allies of virtue, not because they are idealistic, but because they act with consistency and strength when others falter. Adversity also clarifies relationships. It strips away illusions and shows you exactly where you stand with each person. It may hurt, yes, but it also saves you from deeper betrayals later. When you see someone's true nature in difficult times, believe it. Don't excuse it. Don't wait for better days to give them another mask to wear. As Machiavelli wrote, it is better to be feared than loved, if love cannot be trusted, and that means you must stop giving love to those who failed the test of hardship. Ultimately, life will present these moments to you, moments where the people around you must choose. Will they stand with you in the fire or walk away to stay warm elsewhere? That choice, unforced and unfiltered, is the most honest expression of character you'll ever see. So don't fear adversity, not just for yourself, but because it brings light. It shines into dark corners and reveals what's been hidden. And once you see who's real, you'll never be fooled again. If you truly want to know who someone is, watch how they treat people who can do absolutely nothing for them. This, Machiavelli would argue, is one of the most revealing tests of character. In the grand halls of power, it's easy to be courteous to kings, to flatter the wealthy, to praise those who hold influence. But the real test lies in how someone behaves when there's no reward, no spotlight, and no strategic advantage in being kind. The way a person treats the powerless, servants, waiters, strangers, even animals, is a direct window into their soul. Machiavelli lived in a world of courts, alliances, and shifting power structures. He observed that most people instinctively adjust their behavior depending on status. They kneel before the prince, but kick the peasant. They smile at the rich, but scorn the poor. This isn't just hypocrisy, it's a kind of manipulation. It's the art of treating people not as individuals, but as tools to be used or obstacles to be avoided. And while it may serve someone well in the short term, Machiavelli understood that this kind of behavior reveals a deeper, more dangerous flaw, a complete lack of integrity. When someone shows kindness only when there's something to gain, their actions are not virtuous, they're calculated. And calculation is not the same as character. Genuine people remain consistent regardless of status. They speak respectfully to the janitor, not because they're trying to impress anyone, but because it's simply how they move through the world. They don't degrade, dismiss, or overlook others based on utility. They recognize the humanity in everyone, regardless of power or prestige. Think of the quiet moments you've witnessed. Someone holding the door for an elderly person, someone thanking a cashier with sincerity, someone helping a stranger without expecting applause. These are the moments where true nature leaks through. Not the curated speeches, not the grand gestures, but the tiny, unguarded choices. Machiavelli would have paid close attention to these small actions, because they are far harder to fake than declarations of virtue. But there's another layer. Often, those who mistreat the powerless also wield kindness as a weapon, reserved only for those above them in the social order. This is the domain of sycophants, flatterers, and social climbers. They perform humility to those who can promote them, while treating those beneath them with silent contempt. In The Prince, Machiavelli warned rulers to beware of such people, not because they're obvious enemies, but because their loyalty is only ever skin deep. The moment their superior falls from grace, their loyalty evaporates. Why? Because their respect was never real, it was transactional. This insight applies far beyond politics. In your own life, you will encounter individuals who seem warm and charismatic, especially around people they admire or want something from. But observe how they behave in everyday, low-status situations. Do they make eye contact with the homeless person they pass? Do they say thank you to a delivery driver? Do they listen when someone quiet tries to speak in a group? If they ignore, belittle, or mock people they consider beneath them, then their charm is not authenticity, it's strategy. There is a quiet cruelty in those who treat people based on what they can offer, because this behavior reduces human beings to tools. And once someone sees you as a tool, they will discard you when you're no longer useful. Machiavelli knew that rulers, generals, and merchants all had to learn this the hard way. The real allies, the ones who would stand by you when power shifted, were often the ones who never needed anything from you to begin with. Their loyalty was built not on gain, but on recognition of shared humanity. Ironically, some of the most dangerous people in Machiavelli's eyes were not openly hostile, but those who treated the weak with disdain while pretending to be righteous. This duplicity creates instability, it undermines trust, it creates cultures, whether in courts or in communities, where everyone acts but no one believes, and that is a kind of poison Machiavelli saw bring down entire kingdoms. So if you want to build a life surrounded by real people, pay attention to how they treat those with no title, no fame, no resources. This is where the truth lives. Because kindness shown without benefit is the rarest kind, and cruelty shown in small everyday moments is the clearest sign of a false heart. Ultimately, who someone is when there's no reason to be good, that's who they really are. And once you understand this, you'll begin to see past the charm, the charisma, and the performance. You'll begin to see people as they are, not as they present themselves to be. And that, in Machiavelli's world, or in ours, is a power worth more than gold. Flattery is one of the most seductive and dangerous tools in human interaction. On the surface, it feels good. It comforts the ego, soothes our insecurities, and makes us believe that someone truly sees and values us. But Niccolò Machiavelli, ever the realist, warned that flattery is rarely innocent. In most cases, it's not an expression of admiration, it's a form of control. It is a weapon wielded by those who want something from you but don't want to appear as if they're taking it. And if you're not careful, flattery can become the very thing that blinds you to betrayal. In The Prince, Machiavelli advises rulers to be cautious of flatterers because they rarely speak the truth. Instead, they tell you what you want to hear. They read your desires, your vanity, your emotional soft spots, and then feed them back to you like a mirror crafted from honey. This makes you feel seen, special, and superior, but it also makes you easier to manipulate, because once someone knows what compliments you crave, they can use those compliments as a leash. But flattery doesn't only live in royal courts or political spheres. It exists in everyday life, in friendships, in romantic relationships, in business. And it often disguises itself as support. The colleague who always agrees with your ideas, no matter how flawed. The friend who praises your every decision but never offers real advice. The partner who constantly showers you with compliments yet avoids every difficult conversation. At first, it feels like love, it feels like loyalty, but over time something feels missing: truth. This is what Machiavelli wanted us to understand. Real people are not afraid to challenge you. They will risk discomfort to tell you the hard truths. They will confront you when you're wrong, not because they enjoy conflict, but because they care about your growth. That kind of honesty, genuine, constructive, and sometimes painful, is the mark of a real ally. Flatterers avoid this. They fear falling out of favor, so they avoid friction. And in doing so, they rob you of clarity. If you look closely, there are signs. A flatterer often exaggerates. Their praise feels inflated, almost theatrical. They may compare you to greatness, even when it's unearned. They may dismiss criticism from others, not because it's false, but because they fear it will damage your image of yourself. And when you fail or make a mistake, they're the first to rush in with phrases like, "It's not your fault," or "You were right all along," even if you weren't. This may feel supportive, but it's not rooted in truth. It's rooted in fear and self-interest. Why do they do this? Because flatterers want to secure their position. By making themselves indispensable to your ego, they ensure you keep them close. They fear that honesty might jeopardize that closeness. And so they become experts in emotional seduction. They learn your language, your rhythms, your triggers. They give you the version of yourself you want to believe in. But the cost is high. You begin to lose sight of reality. Surrounded by yes men, the prince becomes blind. And the same is true for anyone who builds their world on a foundation of hollow praise. There's also a deeper danger. People who rely on flattery often have no real loyalty. The moment your status changes, when you face criticism, failure, or fall from power, they vanish. Their praise was not for you, it was for what you represented. You were a ladder, not a person. Machiavelli knew this well. He watched countless nobles fall from grace, abandoned by the same voices that once swore undying devotion. When you are no longer useful to a flatterer, their true face emerges: indifference, distance, or even betrayal. So how do you tell the difference between flattery and genuine support? Pay attention to who challenges you when no one else does. Who gives you uncomfortable feedback, not to tear you down, but to help you grow. Who remains honest, even when it risks tension. These people are not enemies, they are your mirrors, and though their words may sting, they are a gift, because they reflect the truth, not the fantasy. Machiavelli would say that the wisest among us cultivate relationships with people who speak plainly, not cruelly, not arrogantly, but with integrity. Because while flattery makes you feel powerful, truth makes you wise. The flattered ruler may feel loved, but the one who listens to honest counsel is the one who survives. In the end, the greatest danger of flattery is not betrayal, it's delusion. It's living in a world where your faults are invisible and your limits go unchecked. And in that world, the fall always comes, sudden, sharp, and unexpected, because no one warned you, because no one dared to. So if someone in your life flatters you endlessly, be cautious. Ask yourself, do they truly see me, or are they feeding me what I want to see? And if someone occasionally challenges you, corrects you, even disagrees with you, don't push them away. You may have just found someone real, someone who doesn't fear your power, but respects your potential. Time is the ultimate truth teller. It is the great revealer of all things hidden. In Machiavelli's world, one filled with deception, shifting alliances, and carefully constructed appearances, he knew that the single most reliable way to understand someone's true nature wasn't through conversation, confession, or even confrontation. It was through observation over time. Because time has a way of eroding masks. It exposes contradictions. It unmasks the pretender, the manipulator, the opportunist. You just have to wait. When someone enters your life, especially if they're charming, intelligent, or emotionally attentive, it's easy to get swept up in the surface. We naturally want to believe people are who they say they are. We listen to their words, we see their curated behaviors, and we begin to form an idea of their character. But Machiavelli would warn us, do not trust first impressions. People often reveal only the parts of themselves that are beneficial in the beginning. They present a version of themselves shaped by what they think you want or need. This isn't always malicious, it's often instinctive, but whether intentional or not, it isn't the full truth. That truth only begins to emerge with consistency, or the lack of it. Over time, people inevitably let their guard down. Habits reappear, reactions slip through, patterns develop. A person who wants to appear generous may grow resentful when generosity is no longer rewarded. Someone pretending to be humble might show envy when others are praised. The one who acts loyal may begin to distance themselves once your influence fades or when you face adversity. It is not the grand gestures that expose character, it's the accumulation of small moments, and these only come with time. Machiavelli observed this phenomenon in political life. A new advisor, ally, or noble might behave perfectly in the beginning, offering counsel, pledging allegiance, performing loyalty. But months or years later, their ambitions would surface. They'd begin to act not according to principle, but according to opportunity. And the prince who was too quick to trust would pay dearly. That's why Machiavelli advised rulers to never place full trust in anyone until time had tested them thoroughly, not through words, but through real-world situations, especially those involving loss, power, temptation, or conflict. In personal life, the lesson is the same. If someone seems too good to be true, wait. Not out of paranoia, but out of wisdom. Trust is not something granted once and forever. It is something earned, little by little, through time and proven behavior. Anyone can act kind for a day. Anyone can pretend to care for a few weeks. But can they sustain it through boredom, through difficulty, through disagreement? Do they remain honest even when lying would be easier? Do they treat you the same after they've seen your flaws? Real people are steady. Over time, their behavior creates a clear, reliable pattern. You begin to feel their authenticity because it never wavers. They are who they are regardless of circumstance. Even when things go wrong, especially when they go wrong, they don't shift into a new role. They remain grounded, present, accountable. These are the people you can count on, not because they say they're loyal, but because they've shown it in 100 small ways over a long stretch of time. But the fake, they begin to slip. Their mask gets heavy. They contradict themselves. They say one thing, then act another. Their stories change. Their energy changes when they're no longer center stage. They become impatient, inconsistent, careless. They might even accuse you of changing, when in truth, it's their own illusion that's falling apart. And if you've paid attention, the signs were always there. You just needed time to collect them. There's also a trap here that Machiavelli would want us to avoid, the temptation to rush trust, to shortcut the process. We do this when we're lonely, when we're vulnerable, or when someone seems to offer everything we've ever wanted. But trusting too quickly is not a sign of openness, it's a failure of judgment. In Machiavelli's terms, it is political suicide, and in personal life, it can be emotional ruin. Instead, the wise take their time, they observe, they listen more than they speak. They don't assume character, they study it, and they don't make conclusions based on charm, charisma, or shared opinions. They look for the one thing that cannot be faked forever: consistency. Time reveals everything. It reveals whether love is real or conditional, whether a friend is loyal or self-serving, whether someone truly values you or simply needs something from you. And the longer you watch, the clearer the truth becomes. This is not cynicism, it's clarity. Because when someone has stood the test of time, when they've remained honest, kind, and present through months or even years of change, you can begin to trust them not just with your words, but with your future. Machiavelli's final lesson is simple. You don't need to confront, accuse, or guess. You only need patience. The mask always slips. The truth always comes. And when it does, you'll be glad you waited, because now you can finally see who's real.